May 1944. The Pacific was boiling with blood and steel, and Japan's submarines were supposed to be its silent guardians. But what began with a single intercepted message from a Japanese boat carrying nothing more than rice would trigger the deadliest submarine hunt in naval history. The USS England, a small destroyer escort armed with an experimental weapon called the Hedgehog, would go on to shatter records, sinking 6 submarines in less than 2 weeks. It wasn't just a victory, it was a revolution in anti-submarine warfare that changed the balance of the Pacific War forever. On May 13, 1944, inside a cramped operations room at Pearl Harbor's Fleet Radio Unit Pacific, the war in the Pacific shifted on the scratch of a pencil. Code breakers bent over intercepted Japanese transmissions, scanning endless streams of characters. Most messages were routine, but one stood out: a submarine, I-16, was scheduled to deliver rice to Bougainville. At first glance, it seemed mundane. Sacks of rice to feed hungry garrisons. Yet in warfare, food was as vital as bullets. Cut off supplies, and entire units could starve. Lieutenant Commander Robert Williamson sipped his coffee, instantly aware of the opportunity. If this message was true, the Japanese submarine would be surfacing soon, and surfacing meant vulnerability. The information was too precise to ignore. The United States Navy immediately ordered 3 destroyer escorts, USS England, USS George, and USS Rabbi, to intercept. These ships were not mighty carriers or cruisers, but lean predators designed for one job: to hunt submarines and destroy them. What the Japanese did not know was that this one intercepted message would trigger a campaign unlike anything seen before. The Americans were not just hunting one submarine. They were about to launch the most devastating anti-submarine sweep in naval history, one that would obliterate Japan's underwater fleet and prove that technology, intelligence, and precision could outmatch stealth and tradition. The hunt for I-16 was not simply about sinking a single submarine, it was the opening shot in a 12-day operation that would wipe an entire squadron off the map. The USS England cut through the Pacific at 23 knots, her engines churning seawater into a frothing wake. She was small compared to the giants of the fleet, a Buckley-class destroyer escort displacing just 1,400 tons. But what she carried made her extraordinary. Forward of her bridge, a strange device bristled, a British-designed anti-submarine mortar nicknamed the Hedgehog. Unlike traditional depth charges, which exploded at preset depths and often relied on guesswork, the Hedgehog fired 24 contact-fused projectiles in a deadly spread. They didn't detonate unless they struck a solid object, meaning no wasted explosions, no sonar blackout, no time lost. For the first time, submarine hunting wasn't guesswork. It was mathematics. Target depth, bearing, and speed could be calculated in real time, and attacks could be repeated until a hit was confirmed. Executive Officer John Williamson embodied this new approach. A Cambridge-educated officer with a mind sharpened by trigonometry and physics, he knew submarine hunting wasn't about instinct, it was geometry played out across miles of ocean. He memorized the statistics: depth charges succeeded in 1 out of 80 attacks. The Hedgehog could kill in 1 out of 5. For Williamson, these numbers were a blueprint for changing naval warfare forever. As the USS England steamed toward her first target, her crew honed their skills. Sonar operators trained to distinguish whale song from the metallic ping of a submarine hull. Range, 2,000 yards. Bearing, 090 degrees. Positive contact, he reported. The hunt had begun. Deep beneath the waves, Lieutenant Commander Teuchi Yoshitaka of I-16 had already heard the American sonar pings. He knew the sound like the heartbeat of death closing in. Dive. Emergency. Dive, he barked, as ballasted tanks flooded and the submarine angled sharply downward. Yoshitaka had survived 9 war patrols. He knew the tricks: ride thermal layers, shift course suddenly, run silent. For a time, it worked. England loosed her first Hedgehog salvo. 24 projectiles sank silently into the sea. A miss. The second salvo followed at 13:58. This time, one explosion echoed faintly through the water. A hit, but not fatal. I-16 shuddered, damaged, yet Yoshitaka pushed her deeper. The submarine dove below 300 feet, straining her hull while her crew scrambled to patch leaks. Williamson, relentless, fired again at 14:33. This time, the Hedgehog pattern bracketed the submarine perfectly. 4, maybe 6 projectiles struck home. Explosions ripped through the hull. In I-16's forward torpedo room, seawater erupted. Lights failed, the bow pitched downward into the abyss. Oil and debris floated to the surface, the last traces of 94 Japanese sailors. The Pacific swallowed the rest. For the England's crew, it was more than a kill, it was proof the Hedgehog worked as promised. First blood had been drawn. They were no longer just escorts. They were predators. News of I-16's destruction barely reached Pearl Harbor before another opportunity arose. On May 20th, cryptographers intercepted a second Japanese transmission, revealing the existence of the 7th Submarine Squadron. 7 boats stretched in a patrol line from Truk to the Admiralty Islands, their mission to detect American fleet movements toward the Marianas and Palau. In Tokyo, Admiral Toyota believed this line would shield Japan's vulnerable supply routes. Instead, it had just exposed them. Commander Hamilton Haynes of Escort Division 39 now had orders: sweep west to east, destroy everything in their path. On May 22nd, radar aboard USS George lit up with a surface contact, RO-106, running on the surface to recharge batteries, a fatal necessity. The submarine crash-dived within 40 seconds, but its position was already known. The hunt was on. George fired a Hedgehog salvo at 4:15 but missed. The submarine twisted beneath the sea, testing hydrophone operators' timing. At 4:25, England re-entered the game. Williamson recalculated speed, course, and dive angle with chilling accuracy. At 5:01, England's Hedgehog splashed into the water. Seconds later, 3, maybe more, detonations thundered beneath the waves. A massive plume of water erupted as RO-106's hull ruptured violently. 59 men went down with her. 2 submarines in 4 days. The Japanese patrol line, designed to be impenetrable, was unraveling. For Admiral Toyota, this wasn't just a setback, it was a nightmare. For the crew of England, it felt like destiny. They weren't chasing shadows, they were dismantling Japan's undersea fleet, one submarine at a time. By May 23rd, the 7th Submarine Squadron was unraveling. Radar aboard USS Rabai picked up RO-104, a lone submarine, 250 miles northwest of New Ireland. RO-104 surfaced to charge batteries, hoping speed under night cover would keep it safe. Instead, it marked them for death. The submarine dove within 45 seconds, but American fire control had the exact dive point. The American crews were exhausted but electrified. England's kill record was attracting attention across the fleet. Reports streamed to Pearl Harbor, and Admiral Nimitz demanded full details. Admiral Kenyon Washington issued a statement. There will always be an England in the United States Navy. For the Japanese, shock and panic spread through the 7th Squadron. Submariners questioned whether surfacing was suicide, whether evasion tactics worked, whether survival was possible. The proud hunters of the Imperial Navy had become prey. By May 26, the hunter-killer group had been at sea for over a week. Ammunition was running low, the crews running on caffeine and adrenaline. Standard procedure dictated they head to port, but Commander Haynes wasn't ready. Intelligence hinted RO-108 was nearby, regrouping with the last 2 surviving boats. That night, radar aboard England pulsed with life. Sonar locked onto a contact just 1,200 yards off the starboard bow. RO-108. Williamson had minutes to calculate attack geometry. England fired her Hedgehog. 24 spiked projectiles descended. Seconds ticked by. Then the detonation. Multiple hits tore open RO-108's hull, the sea boiled, and a massive explosion erupted. 54 Japanese sailors were gone.
conditions for 8 days, expending ammunition and fuel at rates that required immediate replenishment. Standard procedure would have been to return to port for resupply and crew rest. But Commander Haynes requested permission to conduct one final sweep of the patrol area while proceeding to the port of Manus for replenishment. Intelligence intercepts suggested that RO-108 was operating in the immediate vicinity, possibly attempting to rendezvous with the remaining submarines for coordinated withdrawal to safer waters. USS England detected RO-108 at 2304 on May 26. Sonar contact at 1500 yards. Target proceeding at 8 knots on a southeasterly course. The submarine was running submerged but at shallow depth, probably attempting to maximize speed while maintaining minimal battery consumption for extended operations. Williamson's attack calculation was completed within 3 minutes of initial contact. Target depth estimated at 120 feet based on sonar propagation characteristics. Course unchanged since initial detection, suggesting the submarine's commander was either unaware of American presence or attempting to outrun pursuit, rather than engage in evasive maneuvers. The England's Hedgehog attack at 2323 put multiple projectiles into RO-108's hull. the radio transmission at 0736 on May 30th authorized the England's final attack. Executive Officer Williamson had been tracking the engagement and calculating optimal attack parameters based on the submarine's observed evasion patterns. Target depth approximately 200 feet. Course varying but generally southwest toward Bougainville. Speed reduced to conserve battery power. The England's Hedgehog attack at 0736 scored 6 to 10 direct hits on RO-105's pressure hull. A major explosion followed at 0741 as the submarine's compressed air systems ruptured and seawater flooded all compartments simultaneously. Oil and debris fountained to the surface, marking the final destruction of the 7th Submarine Squadron. Captain Ryanosuk Kato, one of the Imperial Navy's most experienced submarine commanders, was among the 55 men lost when RO-105 sank. His death represented not just the loss of individual expertise but the destruction of institutional knowledge accumulated through years of Pacific combat operations. 6 submarines destroyed in 12 days. The USS England's achievement was unprecedented in the history of anti-submarine warfare and would never be equaled. Admiral Ernest King's promise that "there'll always be an England in the United States Navy" was fulfilled in 1960 when the guided missile destroyer USS England was commissioned, carrying forward the name and legacy. But the tactical implications extended far beyond individual achievement. The destruction of the 7th Submarine Squadron represented a fundamental shift in the Pacific War's balance of power. Admiral Toyoda's Operation Ego, the planned decisive battle against American carrier forces, had been compromised before it began. Without submarine reconnaissance, Japanese naval intelligence was operating blind. The technological lessons were equally significant. American industry had produced 622,128 depth charges between December 1941 and September 1945, representing a massive investment in traditional anti-submarine weapons. The Hedgehog's superior performance suggested that future naval construction should prioritize accuracy over quantity. British figures from World War II showed that 1 submarine would be sunk for every 60 standard depth charge attacks. The Hedgehog achieved a ratio of 1 submarine sunk for every 6 attacks, a 10-fold improvement in effectiveness. When combined with improved sonar equipment and radar detection capabilities, the Hedgehog represented a revolutionary advance in anti-submarine warfare. The psychological impact on Japanese submarine operations was equally devastating. Submarine crews who had previously operated with confidence in their ability to evade American attacks now faced weapon systems that seemed to achieve impossible accuracy. Morale reports from intercepted documents revealed growing reluctance among submarine commanders to engage American surface forces. Admiral Toyoda's reaction to the loss of the 7th Submarine Squadron was swift and decisive. Operation Ego was modified to eliminate dependence on submarine reconnaissance. Surface vessels and aircraft would provide intelligence on American Fleet Radio Unit Pacific's ability to intercept and decode Japanese communications had provided the initial targeting information that made the entire operation possible. Without advanced knowledge of I-16's supply mission and the 7th Submarine Squadron's patrol positions, the American ships would have been searching vast ocean areas with minimal probability of contact. Executive Officer Williamson's mathematical approach to attack planning represented another critical factor. His ability to calculate target depth, course, and speed based on sonar propagation data and observed evasion patterns transformed submarine hunting from an art to a science. Post-war analysis would reveal that Williamson's methodology was adopted throughout the Pacific Fleet, significantly improving overall anti-submarine effectiveness. The human cost of the England's success was sobering. Approximately 400 Japanese submariners died during the 12-day period, representing not just immediate casualties but the loss of irreplaceable experience and training. Each submarine crew required months of specialized instruction and years of operational experience to achieve full combat effectiveness. American losses during the same period were 0. Not a single man aboard the USS England, USS George, or USS Raby was killed or wounded during the submarine hunt. This disparity in casualties reflected not just technological advantages but superior training, tactics, and leadership at every level of command. The broader implications for Japanese submarine operations were catastrophic. The Imperial Navy had begun World War II with 63 fleet submarines, a force that had been reduced to fewer than 30 operational boats by May 1944. The loss of 7 additional submarines in 12 days represented an unacceptable attrition rate that could not be sustained with existing construction capabilities. Japanese shipyards were producing submarines at a rate of approximately 1 boat per month, while American anti-submarine forces were achieving kill rates that far exceeded replacement capacity. The mathematical equation was inexorable. Japanese submarine forces would be eliminated through attrition long before American naval strength could be significantly degraded. The technological gap was equally decisive. American radar systems could detect surface submarines at ranges exceeding 15 miles under optimal conditions. Japanese submarines required surface running for battery charging and air replenishment, creating unavoidable vulnerability windows that American forces could exploit with devastating effectiveness. Sonar improvements had eliminated many of the traditional advantages enjoyed by submarine commanders. Early war ASTIC systems were limited to forward search patterns and lost contact during attack approaches. The USS England's QC sonar equipment maintained target tracking throughout engagement sequences, providing continuous targeting data for weapon systems. The Hedgehog's contact fusing system represented the culmination of 3 years of anti-submarine weapon development. Traditional depth charges exploded at predetermined depths, creating massive underwater disturbances that masked subsequent sonar contacts. Hedgehog projectiles detonated only on direct contact with submarine hulls, eliminating acoustic interference and allowing immediate follow-up attacks. Production statistics revealed the scale of American industrial